Welcome to my video on the best Terastal for every flying type Pokemon. So in this video we're going to go through the flying type and also all of its dual typings and assign them with the best Terastal typing to support them in competitive battles. Now if you're looking for a specific flying type or flying type combination, then go down into the description down below and there will be timestamps for all of those different typings. I also want to just give a quick plea. This video has taken a real long time to do. It's taken so much passion, effort, and all of that kind of stuff, and I really just want to see this do well. But yeah, I really would appreciate if you could interact with this video. I guess, yeah, without further ado, let's get begun. Just some clarification about this video. First of all, this is not an exhaustive list of every single Terastal that would work well with that typing. It's just ones that, in my opinion, would work best for those specific typings. Also, this does not factor in abilities, so in the trailer we saw that Colossal turned to a water-type Terastal and had its steam engine activated. Now, in some cases there are going to be abilities that are going to allow for this to be able to take place effectively, and it's going to allow for abilities to be used with regards to the Terastal combination. And when I've talked about their typings here, I have not considered abilities. I will talk about that separately when I do the competitive guide videos in the future. Also, some Pokemon may be suitable to use specific Terastal based on powerful moves that they have. So for example, if a Pokemon has a ground type move such as Earthquake, which is more powerful than Terra Blast, then they could definitely turn to that Terastal to get that stab, to be able to allow that to do more damage. So in some cases where Pokemon have got powerful moves or a wide move pool, they may be suitable to use more variety of Terastal, but again, I have not factored that in with this one, just on the specific typings as a generalization. With the pure flying type, there is only one Pokemon currently that is competitive that holds this, and that is Tornadus. Now, with flying types, they have three specific weaknesses. They have Electric, Rock, and Ice. Now, you could run a ground Terastal and that would allow you to hit the electric and the rock types for super effective damage, but bear in mind the ice type would be super effective against you still. You could run a steel Terastal, which would allow you to hit for super effective damage on both the rock and the ice type, which would be really helpful. And then you've got the fire Terastal, which would only run for super effective damage on the ice type. So do bear in mind that all three of these have certain capabilities in different places. I'll definitely say that ground and steel are going to be your best ones, and then fire is going to be kind of a secondary option if you need a very specific Terastal type to deal with your weaknesses. Next up, we have one of the most common typings in the game of the normal flying type Pokemon. So here we have three suggested different Terastal. You've got the fire type Terastal. Now, realistically, you could have an ice type Pokemon come in against normal flying type. That would be super effective. Obviously, the fire type Terastal would get rid of the ice type. I also thought grass could work quite effectively because you could possibly have your rock type come in, then obviously it's super effective against your rock type, and it also resists the electric typing as well, but the ice typing is also super effective against grass type, so that doesn't necessarily work amazingly. And then you have the ground type, which again doesn't resist the ice type, but it does hit both the rock and the electric type for super effective damage. So there are three different options there that I think work best. Now, you do have to be very careful when it comes to the ice typing if you go for the grass or the ground, or in terms of the rock typing when it comes to the fire type Pokemon. So it depends on how you personally want to run it and what your situation is with your team in this case. Notable Pokemon that I've put here, you've got Staraptor, Braviary, Toucannon, and Swellow, but there are many more normal flying type Pokemon that do fit in well into this category of being notable Pokemon, but I just thought 4 because that was really what I could fit inside of the box. Here we have the bug and flying type Pokemon. Now, the notable Pokemon we have are Yanmega, Vivillon, and also Vespiquen. Now, there are a few more different Pokemon that can be put into this category as well, but I just chose those three because they're three of my favourites. Now, your big weakness here is definitely going to be the rock type. You are 4 times weak to rock type, so having a ground type Terastal would be absolutely amazing. Now, you could replace that with grass or water in some circumstances if you wanted to. That would work perfectly for you. Now, you also could then see yourself with a fire or a flying type coming in against you, which would obviously be very problematic. So the rock typing is going to be super effective against those two and also resists the fire and the flying type as well. Now, with your flying type, electric types are potentially likely to come in, so you could have electric type as a typing that will basically reduce the amount of damage that you take, or in terms of the flying types that could come in to hit your for super effective damage in terms of your bug typing, you've then got electric typing that would be able to cover that. Now, I would suggest that ground and rock are probably going to be your best two here, because ground does cover a lot of your weaknesses, but rock also is a secondary. I would say electric is probably the worst one of the three, but still also a very good one. Next up, we have the dark flying type. Now, notable Pokemon, there are several here. You've got Galarian Moltres, which is a fantastic mon. Honchkrow, which is probably the weakest of the three, but then you've got Mandibuzz, which is absolutely insane. I love using Mandibuzz personally. Now, there are 3 Terastal typings I've put here, but there are other opportunities that you can use as well. In terms of your weaknesses, what you have got the Fairy type weakness, but you have not got the Bug or the Fighter type weakness anymore, but you have picked up a weakness to Electric, Ice, and Rock. Now, I'd recommend, because Fairy typing is very common, that you go for a Poison or a Steel type. Obviously, lots of Pokemon cover with Fairy type moves. Every team I think I've seen has a Fairy type Pokemon on it, or the vast majority, and that Poison Steel type allows you to cover any of those Fairy types that want to come in. You've also got the Ground type that covers any Electric types that want to come in. You could even have a Fighting type, which gets rid of the Ice and the Rock type weakness as well, so that is a possible 4th Terastal on there as well, but I think your Fairy weakness is going to be the main one there, but you can run Ground or Fighting if you're worried more with regards to the weaknesses involved around the Flying type. Next up, we have the Dragon and Flying typing. So, notable Pokemon here, we have got Dragonite, Salamence, Noivern. There are a few more Dragon Flying type Pokemon that are really cool as well, but those are the 3 that kind of stuck out. Now, with terms of Terastal, you have got multiple different options here. You could run a Steel or Poison to get rid of the Fairy types that could come in. I haven't put them on here because it's one that I've come up again and again and again against the Dragon typing. But then we have got the 4 times weakness to Ice. So a Fighting Terastal would work really, really well here to get rid of that. Also, the Steel Terastal would work fantastically to get rid of the Ice type weakness. I've put the Water type here as well because you have got a weakness to Rock types, so having the Water type to cover that could work really well. And then Fairy type to obviously cover any of the Dragon type Pokemon that might decide to come in against this. But as I said, you've kind of got those 3 options, but you've got Steel and Poison. And actually, now thinking about it, Steel might be one of the best Terastals to run for this type, so actually I think Steel would be one that I would definitely recommend. Here we have the Electric and Flying types. There are 2 reps for this in Zapdos and Thundurus. They are both absolutely fantastic Pokemon to use, so I definitely would recommend you try them out. But with this Pokemon, you have got 2 weaknesses. You've got Ice type and you have got Rock type. Now, both of those are covered super effectively by Fighting types and also Steel types. So Fighting and Steel are absolutely perfect Terastals to use in this case. You have got Water. It is super effective against the Rock type, and it also resists the Ice type, so that can be beneficial as well, but I think Fighting and Steel are just ever so slightly better, unless you're looking at purely a defensive way, and then Water might be a slightly better case to use. Next up, we have Fairy Flying. Now, the main Pokemon for this is Togekiss. In fact, I think this is the only Pokemon that holds the Fairy Flying type as a final evolution form. So, weakness-wise, you have got your Poison, you've got your Steel from the Fairy type. On the Flying type, you have got your Ice, you've got your Rock, and you have also got your Electric. Now, 4 of those typings can be covered by a Ground Terastal. So, Poison, Steel, Rock, and Electric are all hit super effectively by the Ground type. So, Ground type Terastal definitely would be a fantastic Terastal to have on Togekiss. Now, in some cases, you might need to go around that, so having Fighting type will also hit the Steel types, and the Rock types, and the Ice types, and then the Fire type as well would cover the Ice types and the Steel types as an opportunity there. So I'll definitely say Ground type is the top tier Terastal here, but then Fighting is pretty good, as well as Fire being pretty good. This one is the Fighting and Flying type Pokemon. So we've got Hawlucha and Galarian Zapdos, and unfortunately this thing has got like 6 weaknesses. So with regards to the Fighting type, you've still got your weakness to Psychic types, you've got your weakness to Fairy types, you've got your weakness to Flying types as well. And then Flying types, they are weak to Electric, Electric, Ice, and Rock. Now, with regards to these, I've come up with 3 different Terastals. You've got Ground type Terastal here, which allows you to be able to work against some of the types there, such as your Rock type. You have got your Steel type here, which allows you to be able to hit the Rock type, the Ice type, the fairy type as well for super effective damage. So I would say that's probably going to be your best one in this scenario. The ground also covers the electric typing as well. You've then got your poison typing, which would allow you to resist a few different hits and allows you to hit the fairy type for super effective damage there as well. I think in this case steel is definitely going to be your best bet, but ground could also be a really good option for you. Next up we have fire and flying. So a couple of notable Pokemon here. We have got Moltres, Talonflame and Charizard, although I believe there are a couple more fire flying Pokemon out there. Now the biggest weaknesses you have got here are your rock type weakness, your water type weakness and your electric type weakness. Obviously the rock type weakness is 4 times, so it's something that you definitely need to really consider. So with regards to the rock type weakness and also the electric type weakness, you can run a ground Terastal. However, this is not very effective against the water type, and the water type will be super effective against the ground type, so do be considerate of that. You have then got your grass Terastal. Now grass will be super effective against the rock types and it'll be super effective against the water types and will also resist the electric types. So that is going to be a really good option for you to use. In fact, I'd say it's the best option for you to use. However, you have also got water. Now bear in mind, water will not resist the electric. The electric type attack, if that comes in, will cause you some problems, but it will hit the rock type Pokemon for super effective damage and resist the water type Pokemon. So I would say in this scenario, grass is the best, followed by ground, and then by the water type Terastal. Next up we have the flying ghost type. Now the only Pokemon that's notable here is Drifblim, but there could be more in the future. Now with regards to weaknesses, for flying type you have still got your electric, your ice and your rock type weakness, and for ghost you have got your ghost and your dark type weaknesses. So in this case you can run a fighting type that would allow you to be able to hit the dark type for super effective damage and also the ice type and rock type for super effective damage. So it would work really well as a Terastal type, covering a variety of different things. You've got fairy, which would allow you to be able to hit the dark type that could come in against you in this scenario. You could also run a ghost type or a dark type Terastal to be able to hit any ghost types that might want to come in. But your ground type will also cover your rock type and also your electric type that could come in against this. So I think personally your fighting type or your ground type are going to be your best Terastals here, but fairy type could be another option if you're worried about those dark type Pokemon coming in and causing damage, especially if you don't have anything on your team already to deal with it. Next up we have the flying and grass types. The only 2 Pokemon currently that have this typing are Tropius and Jumpluff. However, this typing does have quite a few different weaknesses. So you do have the ice weakness times 4, you do still have the rock type weakness, you have the weakness associated with grass as well. So you have flying, you have fire, and you also have the ice type. So ice type is the main one you want to focus on here, and that's why I've given you steel and fire as your Terastal types. Now they both deal with the ice types very well, and also can deal with a couple of the other typings involved also. So steel will cover with the rock types, and fire can definitely cover a variety of different types that may want to come in, including the fire type, which you are weak to yourself. It allows you to be able to absorb those hits much better. You've also got the electric typing here as well, because flying could definitely come in on this Pokemon. You could potentially even run like a rock type Pokemon or even an ice type Pokemon in this scenario if you wanted to, but I think definitely trying to deal with a Terastal with the ice type, dealing with the ice type is going to be your biggest thing here. So I would say steel or fire are going to be your top options for the Terastal. Next up we have the ground and flying, and these are 2 of my favourite Pokemon in here, in Gliscor and in Landorus. They are 2 phenomenal Pokemon that I definitely recommend you using competitive. Now with regards to weaknesses here, we have a 4 times weakness to ice and a 2 times weakness to water, and that is it. So with regards to the ice issue, I would definitely recommend having a steel or a rock type, which can be super effective against both of those. Steel is probably better than rock because you then have the neutral when it comes to water types, whereas the rock types, it is super effective against the water type. The water type is super effective against the rock type, sorry. Then you've got the electric type on here as well, and that's to cover the water type weakness that could possibly come in as well. So realistically, I think you probably have steel is your best option here Rock is a really good option as long as you can cover water types really well, and then electric is another good option if you don't have to worry too much about the ice type. Next up, we have got the flying ice type. So notable Pokemon here is Articuno. I think that's the only Pokemon that actually does have the flying and ice type currently, but I could be wrong with that. Now with this, you have got a weakness, a 4x weakness to rock, you have got a weakness to fire, you have got a weakness to steel, and you have also got a weakness to electricity. Now, what is the best Terastal against all this is the ground type, because ground type is super effective against all 4 types of your weakness. So that would mean that you're allowing yourself to essentially deal with any weaknesses that you could have. So ground is definitely the best Terastal here, but if you need any alternatives, you've got fighting, which covers the rock, it covers the steel type as well, and you've also got the water, which covers the rock type, and it covers the fire type as well. Bear in mind you have got the electric type in there, which could cause problems. So definitely the Terastal that's the best here is ground, but fighting and water can be a good alternative. Here we have the flying and poison type. Now the only Pokemon that applies here currently is Crobat, but there could be more in the future. Now, with this typing, you have got 4 weaknesses. You have got your flying type weakness of electric, rock, and ice, and you have the poison type weakness to psychic. Now, with regards to the psychic type weakness, I've decided to put in a dark type Terastal if you wanted to run that, but you could also run fighting or ground to deal with your flying type weaknesses. So ground allows you to cover the rock type and the electric type weakness for super effective damage, and fighting allows you to be able to cover the ice and the rock type. However, bear in mind that obviously a psychic type can come in that would be super effective against the fighting. So do be very cautious when it comes to playing the fighting type, but I definitely think ground type would be a really good option here. Dark and fighting are good alternatives as well. With the flying and psychic type, we have got several different Pokemon that do fit into this category. You've got Galarian, Articuno, Xatu, Sigilyph, and also Swoobat. Now, these Pokemon do have quite a few different weaknesses. You have got the flying weaknesses of rock, ice, and electric, and then you've got the dark and ghost weakness on psychic as well. So I definitely recommend that you have a ghost or a fairy type to cover your psychic type weaknesses as your Terastal, and you could also run a ground type or I think a ground type or a fighting type would allow you to cover the majority of your flying weaknesses. So your ground type would allow you to cover the electric and also the rock type weakness, whereas a fighting type would allow you to cover the rock and the ice type weakness as well. So ground and rock is a really good option. Same with ghost or fairy, depending on how you've built your team and what you need to cover based on your team. Next up, we have the flying and rock type. So with this, we have got Aerodactyl and also Minior being our main notable Pokemon here. And the weakness-wise, you have only really got the fairy weaknesses. So you've got electric weakness, you have got a rock weakness, and you have got an ice weakness here as well as a water weakness from the rock typing. Now, with this, for the flying type weaknesses to do with your rock and your ice, I definitely would recommend covering with a steel type Terastal. That would definitely help deal with those 2 options, and possibly dealing with electric type slightly as well. You've then got your grass option, which allows you to cover your rock type as well as your water type Terastal. As well as the water type that might come in against your rock flying. And then you've got the electric type, which again covers the water type that may come in. You might want to use the ground typing as well, because that covers a few more of the different Pokemon. So, for example, it might cover the rock and the electric issues. And then you might have fighting as well, which allows you to cover the rock and the ice issues that you would see from this. However, I think it's quite unlikely that an ice type Pokemon would come in against this, because obviously rock is super effective against ice. Next up, we have Flying Steel, which in my opinion is one of the best typings in the game. So notable Pokemon we have here are Corviknight, Skarmory, and Celesteela. These are the only 3 that have the Flying Steel type typing. Now, with regards to weaknesses, the only weaknesses that we have here are the fire weakness and also the electric weakness. Now, with this, we can cover both of those weaknesses with a ground type Terastal. So ground type Terastal is definitely the best option to run here, but if you are worried about the the fire type, you could also run a water type Terastal, or you could run a rock type Terastal instead as well. But definitely ground is going to be your best option here, but you could run rock or water if you need an alternative. Next up we have water and flying. Now the two notable Pokemon here are Pelipper and Gyarados, and they only have 2 weaknesses. One being a 4 times weakness to electric, and the other one being a 2 times weakness to rock. Now, in the case of the weakness to rock, you might want to just turn yourself to a pure water type, and that will get rid of that weakness entirely. You could also turn into a grass Terastal in order to take on the rock type, and also to reduce the amount of damage that you're taking from the electric type because you're going to resist it. However, in both of these scenarios, you do have the ground type Terastal, which is super effective on both the rock type and also the electric type. So ground Terastal on a flying water type would be the best Terastal typing there is, but water and grass would be a secondary option for you to be able to run. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every single view that any of these videos get, and you know, I've put so much time into this that if you made it this way, then all I can do is thank you with my heart, because you know, you're what helps the channel. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. As I said, if you could interact, I'd really appreciate it. Comment down below if there are any ones that you disagree with, or any ones that you would add a different Terastal typing to, and give your reasoning for it as well. And I'd really love to see that. I think that would be a really cool way to interact with me, and I will definitely take a look at them, and I'll try and reply as much as I can. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.